On CDC's website right now, they list the 10 greatest advances in medical science, and one of them is abortion.
Last week, Kennedy's firing of Susan Monterez, head of CDC, exposed what's been hiding in plain sight for 1,000 years, a much darker agenda of eugenics, sterilization, and depopulation. The mask is finally down. This is war, and it's spiritual. What you're about to hear is a lot deeper than money and corporate capture. This is a century-long agenda of death, and I'm going to lay out the complete timeline for you.
I certainly consider mass shootings a health crisis, and we are doing for the first time real studies to find out what the etiology of that is. And we're looking for the first time at psychiatric drugs. You know, these kind of mass shooting, people have had guns in this country forever. When I was a kid, we had shooting clubs at our school. People, kids, my classmates, other people would bring a .22 rifle with their guns to school and park it in the parking lot. Nobody was shooting. So there's never been a time in America, in the history of humanity, and people walked into a crowd, into a church or a movie theater or a school or a crowd of strangers that just started randomly shooting. It's happening in our country. It's not happening around the world. And there are many other countries that have comparable levels of guns that we have in this country. We had comparable levels in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and people weren't doing that. Something changed, and it dramatically changed human behavior. And one of the culprits we need to examine is whether the fact that we are the most over-medicated nation in the world, and that a lot of those are psychiatric drugs that have black box warnings on them that warn of suicidal and homicidal ideation. So we are doing those studies right now for the first time, and we will have an answer.
Abortions, mass poison, federal mandates, those are the top priorities at CDC. And when you watch this till the end, you will unravel a horrifying story. The people in charge seem to want more death, not life. So what is going on?
On CDC's website right now, they list the 10 top advances, the 10 greatest advances in medical science, and one of them is abortion. Another is fluoridation, another is vaccines. So we need to look at the priorities of the agency. If there's really a deeply, deeply embedded, I would say, malaise at the agency. And we need strong leadership that will go in there and that will be able to execute on President Trump's broad ambitions.
It might sound insane, but CDC's roots are in eugenics. Before it was the CDC, it was the U.S. Public Health Service, which engaged in some of the most horrifying eugenics experiments of all time. For decades, USPHS ran programs that sterilized over 60,000 people deemed unfit. Targets included African Americans, Native Americans, Latinos, and the poor. This wasn't fringe. In 1927, the Supreme Court's Buck v. Bell upheld sterilization laws. Justice Holmes infamously wrote, "3 generations of imbeciles are enough." That ruling was never overturned. Then came Tuskegee, hundreds of black men deliberately left to die so public health could study their untreated syphilis. Then, nearly 42% of Native American women were sterilized without informed consent. By 1968, 1/3 of women in Puerto Rico were also sterilized in federally backed programs. And let's not forget, Anthony Fauci's committed heinous crimes against foster children, subjecting them to inhumane HIV scientific experiments. Children were dosed with experimental drug cocktails inducing organ failure, rashes, stunted growth, agonizing pain, and death. When the helpless babies resisted, doctors restrained them. They forcibly inserted feeding tubes to continue pumping drugs in. Today, it seems little has changed. Kennedy has already revealed the truth about multiple programs designed to disable and harm children. Mercury was injected into babies for decades. Fluoride, now proven to lower IQ, is still pumped through our water, and aborted fetus death is celebrated as its greatest achievement of the last several decades. Despite a 2012 study by Protecting Black Life claimed that 79% of Planned Parenthood's surgical abortion facilities were located within 2 miles of neighborhoods with higher than average Black or Hispanic populations, abortion continues to be pushed by the agency. Black women get 4 times the number of abortions that white women do, and policymakers know this. Then came 2020, the world's greatest crime against humanity, mandating a shot that was knowingly injuring and killing unknown amounts of people globally, particularly children. Reports show what Biden's administration knew about myocarditis in February 2021, but purposefully waited until June to warn people of mild heart damage. The result has been millions of affected families, all of which are still without compensation. When pushed to release the data on myocarditis, CDC covered it up. Lay redacted 100% of it. Remember this?
disheartening, disgusting, and lots of other words. But then it gets better. It just keeps, wait, there's more. It just keeps happening. The CDC redacts every single word of a 148-page study on a myocarditis after COVID vaccination. So I asked research to print the study for me. 148 pages. The entire thing is redacted. What good does a study do if there's nothing there? Then I want to know, wait, what might have been there that they needed to redact?
Who covered up that data and why? Well, strap in. This is where actual Satanism enters the scene. I wish I was joking. The person in charge of the National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases, Dr. Dimitra Daskalakis, would be responsible for clearly articulating the risks associated with any recommended or mandated vaccines. Unfortunately, he was a little busy dressing as the devil, engaging in illicit sexual activity, and posing for risque photo shoots. He is a self-proclaimed Satanist. After resigning last week, Dimitra lamented the lack of objective science under Kennedy. He said, "I am unable to serve in an environment that treats CDC as a tool to generate policies and materials that do not reflect scientific reality and are designed to hurt rather than to improve the public's health." Despite specifically rejecting objectivity in the past,
intentionally, and making sure that we get the word out in a way that supports people's joy as opposed to, calling them risky. So I think, one of the things to think about is that, one person's idea of risk is another person's idea of a great festival or Friday night, for that matter. So we have to
the man advocating for orgies was in charge of your child's vaccines. What kind of culture not only allows a man like this to work in their institution, but to lead it? We're dealing with something far more sinister than a profit scheme. This is clearly an agenda that treats human life as disposable, controllable, and unnecessary. So who ultimately is to blame? Robert F. Kennedy's decision to remove Susan Monterez from the CDC was more than a personnel change. It was a declaration that the old ways of managing public health have failed. For too long, the CDC has operated as a closed system, shielding corporate interests, repeating failed strategies, and losing the trust of the very people it was meant to protect. By taking decisive action, Kennedy broke that cycle. This move was not about politics, it was about accountability. It was about making sure that America's health institutions serve citizens, not corporations. The resignations that followed only proved how deeply the old system resisted change. But to reform an agency as critical as the CDC, disruption is not only expected, it is required. With Jim O'Neill stepping in as acting director, the path forward is clear: transparency, innovation, and independence. These changes align with President Trump's larger vision. America cannot be great while its people are unhealthy and mistrustful of their own institutions. A strong nation begins with a healthy population. History will remember this moment not as a setback, but as a turning point. The dismissal of Monterez signaled the end of business as usual at the CDC. It marked the beginning of a new era in which public health must be rebuilt on trust, accountability, and results. To make America great again, the first step is to make America healthy again. And that is exactly what this decision represents.